Hi, everybody. Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is, whatever time you're there. So, we're continuing our exploration of this particular chapter here, which is in the fourth chapter and the ninth subsection of uh, Orota Tshuva, the lights of return. And the not easy language, as usual, in this particular section. We're talking about the different ways in which the return is going to express itself as we approach the age of redemption, the messianic era. That's not error, but ERA. That's not equal rights amendment either.
Is that the
That's
footsteps of Mashiach?
era. It's the footsteps of Mashiach, Yikut of Mashiach. And we talked about that one of those is going to be the tremendous um, upset that we're going to experience when we realize how far we've strayed from the incredible treasure that we own, that we go around sniffing in all kinds of foreign, other people's backyards for the buried treasure, and we don't realize the buried treasure is right in front of our face, right? Uh, now Rav Kook is going to go on. I'll read it in Hebrew, and then I took a look this morning at the translation for Rav Metzger here, which is a pretty good translation. And so we'll read the Hebrew, and then we'll read this translation just so you can get a more accurate sense of what Rav Kook is talking about, and then some really fascinating ideas. So Rav Kook says the following. So we're reading from where it says knowledge and feeling in the English, and then in the Hebrew text, v'hadeya v'haregesh. Okay, v'hadeya v'haregesh, v'tam ha'chaim, hashkafat ha'olam, v'chefetz ha'tchiyah ha'leumi, tikun pigamei ha'neshama, v'hitatzmut ha'oz ha'gufani, hasidur ha'medini, v'chemdat ha'chavura, borchot derech eretz v'savlanut haguna, b'yachad im kina chaya neged kol mitoav vara, neged kol dofi v'chior, u'mesirut ha'nefesh pnimit, ba'ad kol ha'emtzaim she'atov ha'kali ha'yon mofia, v'yuchol lahofia ha'yadam, kol eli yivaldu v'yitgalu az b'chativa achat. Okay, hard passage there. So I'm just going to read this particular translation to be more efficient. So Rav Metzger translates. Now let me just preface this by saying that Rav Kook is going to say that as we emerge from a period in which the Jewish people en masse abandoned our own treasure and looked in foreign climes for treasure, for value, right? That there's going to be a return. But as we said yesterday, that return is going to not be unwise, where that there is a complete rejection of our collective experience wandering around in foreign fields. But we're going to take the best of what we experience in wandering around in foreign climes and then incorporate that in this new redeemed state. And I believe that we yesterday had mentioned that this is true both on a collective national level, the Jewish people as a whole, in this period of, let's be brutally honest, that most Jews don't live a life within the framework of Jewish tradition. That's pretty amazing. That I'm not sure that has a precedent in Jewish history, or at least recent Jewish history of, say, the past 1,000 years, where most Jews probably don't keep kosher. Most Jews don't keep Shabbat. And that's just touching on kind of the surface and the kind of more ritual aspects, right? But it's much deeper than that, obviously. So that's an incredible state of assimilation into the general culture of wherever Jews happen to live, kind of abandoned of that own personal treasure. And so as we then begin the process being described here, we realize what what a great tragedy that is, and how we robbed ourselves of our own heritage, that there could be a tendency to then utterly reject the experience of wandering around in foreign fields. Rav Kook is saying, every time there's a breakdown of something, just like in the laws of Shabbat. In the laws of Shabbat, you're not allowed to ruin something. But it's only when you're ruining something in order to actually build up. That's a malacha. A creative activity is laharos almanat livnot, to break down something in order to build. Whenever we break down something, that has to be the foundation for building up. So the past 200 years of breaking down, rather than just saying, oh, that was a horrible thing, to use that in order to build up. And that's not just true in terms of our collective life, but it's true in terms of our personal lives. We all deal with periods in our lives of breakdown, of things are unraveling, right? But those periods are, in fact, can and must be viewed as constructive, that we're going to build from the remnants. The shattering down which took place is actually fertile territory for rebuilding. So Rav Kook described that we're going to, in a very moderate and wise way, take the best of what we learned from this period of assimilation and abandonment. We're going to use that to reconstruct ourselves. Now that process of reconstruction is going to involve what seem to be contradictions, and that's what we're about to see now. So as we read through the next couple of sentences, I want everybody to help me out here and see how the terms Rav Kook uses here to describe the reconstruction process involve elements which seem to be mutually exclusive or contradictory. Okay, knowledge and feeling. Ever see where we are? Right? In the Hebrew, Hadea v'haregesh. Okay, knowledge and feeling. So those, emotion versus intellect, we often see those things as oppositional. There's the right brain people and the left brain people, right? They're the intellectuals, and then they're the very touchy-feely emotional types, right? Seems to be contradictory. The sense of life, the worldview, and the desire for national renaissance, rectification of the soul's defects, Boker Tov Saba, rectification of the soul's defects and enhancement of bodily strength. Okay, so that's two elements there. Maybe you'll help me with the middle one. Does anybody see how the sense of life, the worldview, and the desire for national renaissance, how are those contradictory? I don't even know what he means exactly, but that's supposed to be some kind of contradictory element there. Let's read the Hebrew on that phrase. Hashkafat ha'olam v'chefetz hatchia halumit. Okay, I'll tell you what I think perhaps he means there. Maybe. I really don't know, but it's a difficult phrase, and I didn't see anybody who explains it. But maybe he means, hashkavat olam. Olam means the world. To have an outlook which is worldly and big. Olam, world. But at the same time, chefetz hatchia halumit, the desire for national renaissance. You see, perhaps Rav Kook is talking about the tension or seeming tension between concern of national renaissance, versus more universal, or put it this way, universalism versus particularism, right? To what extent are we focused on just the Jewish people ourselves on a collective level, or what extent we care about the world as a whole, right? Maybe nationalism and universalism are in contradiction, and maybe that's the tension there. It's a little hard to understand. The next phrase is more clear, where he talks about, in Hebrew, tikkun pigamei haneshama v'hitatzmut ha'oz hagufani, correcting the defects of the soul versus the strengthening of bodily power, right? So that's more clear. Or as he says here in the English, rectification of soul's defects and enhancement of bodily strength, right? That seems to be a contradiction. There are people who would say, oh, working out in a gym and putting a lot of focus on eating properly and getting exercise, whatever it may be, that is very physical kind of focus, and that distracts you from the true focus, which should be, as Rav Kook says here, tikkun pigamei neshama, the soul, correcting the soul. So correcting the body versus correcting the soul, working out of the body versus working out of the soul. So one could see that as a contradiction, right? So you just see these multiple contradictions Rav Kook is pointing out. So, right, emotion versus intellect, nationalism versus universalism, soulfulness versus bodiliness. Okay, let's go on with another contradiction here. The next contradiction is Hasidur HaMedini v'chemdat HaChavura borchot derech eretz. So let's read the English translation there. Societal order and communal desire for honorable conduct. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what those terms mean precisely, and I'm not sure exactly how that's supposed to represent a contradiction. Please help me out here if you see, if you have any insight into that. So societal order versus communal desire for honorable conduct, unless those are both the same thing and associated with bodily strength, I don't know. So let's just move on. The next part I do understand, which is these contradictory terms. I will read the Hebrew first. Savlanut haguna biyachad im kina chaya neged kol metuah v'ra neged kol dofi v'chiyur. Okay, so this is more clear. And so let me just translate it. Appropriate forbearance is the English translation here by Rav Metzger. He means tolerance. Appropriate tolerance coupled with intense anger against everything that's abominable and evil, against everything that's ugly and blemished. Okay, so see, that definitely is a contradiction, meaning, tolerance happens to be a good attribute, but at the same time, it must be coupled with an intense passion for the truth and anger when truth and holiness are trampled upon. How do you combine those two things? Right? Because you can see how, on the one hand, being tolerant requires a kind of, you would think, overlooking of things that attack the truth and attack that which is holy and sacred, right? Or deadening oneself. I remember in my, I commented this in the past that, what do we feel when we see a Jew driving a car on Shabbat? So
I'm trying not to judge, but it's still upsetting.
So so we go through stages, because at a certain stage, we're so zealous for Shabbat that we see a Jew driving on Shabbat, and we should feel heartbroken. And then we become more tolerant, right? What does that mean? So what we do is it no longer bothers us, and we're tolerant. But wait a second, that's right. Can it be possible to have your cake and eat it too? That is, to be heartbroken and angry, right? That the holiness of the Sabbath is being ignored and desecrated and trampled upon, and the person who's engaging in that activity, usually unbeknownst to them, right? They don't know what Shabbat is all about, is destroying their own inner spiritual world and destroying the spiritual world external to them through the desecration of Shabbat, even though they have no clue at all. On the one hand, to feel that upsetness, on the other hand, to have incredible tolerance and forbearance, as he says here, right?
The way I look at it, and maybe off base, is they're going out into the world, Jews, and they see what's going on. We know that a lot of, when Israelis leave Israel, they search out different things, India, whatever, different religions. A lot of them come back, thank God. But they see things that are going on, And when they look in the computer desire for honorable conduct, appropriate forbearance, coupled with intense anger, you know how we should be a proud Jew. You know, we should keep Shabbat, should keep the mitzvah. So I think that's what upsets them is, why don't people see that? You know, that what we have, like you said, is a treasure.
Mhm.
They should see that.
Right.
That
So
upsets them.
that's definitely true in parts of the process of rectification. But I'm just right now focusing on these elements Rav Kook says will coexist, which don't easily coexist. Yes.
I don't know if this is relevant, but I heard the story about, I think it was attributed to the Rebbe, that somebody approached him and said, I need to take this job in which I'll be working on Shabbos. And he figured the Rebbe was just going to yell at him or confront him. And what the Rebbe did is he just started crying. He said, Shabbos, tears coming in his eyes
Right.
for Shabbos.
Right.
But at the same time, there was no
Berating.
yeah.
Right. Absolutely. That's a very good
I think that
example.
was yeah.
That is a good example of how they can coexist. But in any case, just to not lose the forest through the trees here, so Rav Kook is saying that as we enter into this period of redemption, there will coexist things that don't seem to easily coexist, right? So whether we're talking about being emotional versus intellectual, whether we're talking about being universal versus national, whether we're talking about being spiritual versus bodily, whether we're talking about being tolerant versus to be a crusader, right? These are all these kind of contradictory elements. So Rav Kook says that these will all, in fact, coexist. They will all, and now he has this expression that, in fact, at the end of days, all of these will, in fact, be revealed as one unit. Even though they seem contradictory at first glance, all of these things which seem in tension will be chativa achat, one particular unit. Asher letomchom tzrichim anu al yedei hachsharat levavot l'ora shel Torah amiti apnimi razei Torah. Now, how does somehow we are able to nurture and integrate these contradictory elements? Here's the incredible punchline: that we can live a life of what seems to be contradiction and realize it's all chativa achat, all one unit, through preparing the heart properly. You can, in fact, embody together what seem to be contradictory elements. You can be both emotional, intellectual. You can be both universal and national. You can be both bodily and spiritual, right? All of those can be encompassed if the heart is prepared properly. How? Through the light of the true inner Torah, the secrets of Torah. What do you think he means by that? By how do we prepare the heart for living a truly integrated life, which involves seemingly contradictory elements? Through the light of the true inner Torah, the secrets of Torah. What's that a reference to? Help me out here. I need the K word. Kabbalah. It's Kabbalah. Through Kabbalah, through the inner aspect of the Torah, through Kabbalah, that we're able to see how things which appear contradictory are not. We're able to connect the dots to show how everything is united and not contradictory. We can be both emotional and intellectual. We can be worldly and focus on the more national. We can be bodily and spiritual, right? We can be both tolerant and passionate, but only through preparing the heart properly, by having expanded consciousness to encompass things which seem to be contradictory. You need to have a big consciousness. You have to contain a lot of stuff. So how do you contain a lot of stuff? Through conscious expanding Torah. What's conscious expanding Torah? The Kabbalah. Then Rav Kook goes on, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. He says, you know what the problem is? And this is getting better, I think, than it was in his own day. He said the inner Torah asher al pi hashpaot sheishpiu al ela asher davku behem lo hechshar ra'ui kol kach rabu menakrim otam v'amalivim behem. The inner Torah, the secrets of Torah, because people engaged in it without proper preparation, it produced an abomination. And as a result of that, people denigrated the Kabbalistic teachings and shied away from them. This is very true. If you take a look at a lot of the teachings and analysis from 100 years ago, when we're talking about when Rav Kook is writing this, so almost 100 years ago, that people thought there was a lot of hostility towards Kabbalah, and even among Torah circles, that Kabbalah should be limited and only among the select few. It should not something discussed, in public. Certainly not in this room by me. That's for sure. Right? That was the attitude 100 years ago. And Rav Kook is saying, you know why people were so hostile towards Kabbalah? Because some of the greatest abominations in Jewish history happened in the name of Kabbalah. And what specifically he may be talking about in terms of Jewish history level, very good, Shabtai Tzvi, the false messianic movement of Shabtai Tzvi, the false messianic movement of Yaakov Frank. There have been periodic false messianic movements which have been using the flag of Kabbalah.
Even Freud.
Perhaps even Freud. There have been books that have been written about Freud and perhaps being based upon certain. Perhaps there have been books written about that. In any case, just because we have to finish up here, we'll discuss tomorrow is what is the great danger of Kabbalah? Why is it that Kabbalah can somehow easily be misused and lead to the greatest abomination? Yet at the same time, it is the most powerful way to be able to have the most integrated and expansive true Torah consciousness, which will allow us to have a mindset which allows us to have seemingly contradictory elements, which will be characteristic of the Messianic age. We'll continue with that tomorrow.
Madonna's a Kabbalist.